Hello, my front-end friends, and welcome to my podcast, General Musings. My name is Kevin, and here at my podcast, I talk about whatever is front of mind for me in any given week, usually in some way that's related to front-end development, though this week is going to be more of a ramble than anything else, so just don't say I didn't warn you ahead of time. Because, I have a few different topics that I want to talk about that more about me than they are about front-end development specifically. And part of it is because, as you probably know, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, as I ramped down over the summer, because I took like a reduced workload for myself for about 2 months, so I could spend more time with my family. My wife's a teacher, so she and the kids are all off, and we also had some like things we needed to take care of, and the podcast was a casualty of that. So we're back in action now, and we're on a regular schedule again. But as I've been bringing this up and the other things up and just ramping everything up in general, it's made me realize how much I was doing. If that makes sense. It's like I'm realizing now, I don't know why it's taking me so long to realize this because it's happened to me multiple times, but I'm realizing now that it's kind of funny how when you're in the middle of a grind, it can feel very normal. Uh, the time this really hit me hard in realizing this was when this is quite a while ago. At one point, I was doing 2 long form videos a week on YouTube, plus a short, plus I had the newsletter, and I was doing course stuff and a few other things too. And when I decided to go from 2 videos a week to 1 video a week, I was like, how was I making 2 videos a week? Part of the reason I even went to 2 videos a week was because that was part of my plan when I went full time with content creation, because I had a full time job and was making 1 video a week. So it only made sense that if this was my full time job, I could do 2 videos a week. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need to focus on some other things. I was working on a course at the time that needed more attention. So I'm like, I'm going to drop down to 1 and eventually go back up to 2. And when I went down to 1, I was like, holy cow, I have so much more time now. 2 long form tutorial style things per week was a lot. And I don't know, even looking further back, how I had a full time job and was doing 1 video a week. And I did that for a long time. Yeah, and even during all that time, including the 2 videos a week, I was editing all my own videos at the time. Now I have an editor I work with that does probably about 80% of my stuff. But then it was, yeah, I was doing everything. It was kind of nuts. Um, and I only realized it once I stepped back a little bit. And thinking about it now, because seeing now as I'm ramping back up in things, going, oh, wait, I have this other thing and this other thing and this other thing that I'd taken a break from. This is a lot of extra stuff to pile back on. And it's, I sort of think like I should do like a quarterly, am I doing too much check in with myself, or something like that? Or maybe at the very least, a more regular check ins just to remind myself what my priorities are, and focus on the things that I need to be focused on, because I definitely have a bit of ADHD when it comes to distracting myself by starting new projects. And I always start them if it's something I'm excited by, or no, sorry, I'm trying to think. I won't start a project that isn't high priority, like a course or something like that, uh, if I think it's going to distract me from the other things I'm doing. And so whenever I do find something else to add in, this podcast is a good example of this. Whenever I find a new thing to add in, I always tell myself it's going to be low effort. I went through this cycle with the podcast, or I went from very low effort to minimal effort to more effort to maybe a bit too much effort. And then at one point I'm like, okay, no, we're doing these unedited, or they're not unedited now, but they're very lightly edited. And I have my tricks where if I make a mistake, I just don't talk for like 10 seconds so I can find the cut that I want without thinking about it. I make my little fix and then I keep going. These are minimal editing at best, which you probably have noticed if you've been listening to them. So I do apologize for that a little bit. Um, but yeah, I always tell myself they're going to be low effort. And that's definitely happened with the HTML and CSS tip of the week. If you don't know about that, I started the HTML and CSS tip of the week as a low effort way to add something, a thing that I was interested in and wanted to. And I'm like, it's going to be really short, really simple. And really, the point was, let's make this as low effort as possible, but it's something that would be useful. Uh, but it's sort of become a bit of a chore, and I've taken a break from it. And I wanted to get back into it. I was just like, oh, do I really want to start this again? And I think part of the problem is I've diverged from my original plan, like I did with the podcast and like I do with other things. There's a trend here that I probably should be picking up on. But yeah, when I'm part of the problem with it was I always like having like a minimum level of quality. I'm not like, it's not like a Josh Como blog post or something, right? Like I'm not going all in, but I do like having sort of a minimum level of quality and expectation for myself if I'm going to be publishing it in the public. And so these quick examples that I was putting together for the tip of the week, I was like, oh, this would be helpful if the person reading this had an example. And I could have just used code pens, but then I made this, or I was already had this interactive code thingy that I was doing for another project. So I'm like, I'll start putting those into them as like these little interactive examples people could play with. And then those can have toggles and other things on them. And suddenly it went from being something that ideally would have been like a 5 minute time to write it and maybe 10 minutes to then edit and make sure everything's okay, title, description, etc., to just taking way too much of my time every time I had to write one. And it's hard to go back to the original concept when I've added in the interactive code thingies. And this is myself. Like, nobody would probably criticize me if they came across a post in 3 months that I put out that was very minimal but gave them the tip that they wanted. But for me, it feels like I'm regressing if I do that. And instead of regressing, I just let the project go dormant, which is maybe worse. Maybe. I don't know. Uh, the idea with the tip of the week in the first place was that I'd noticed just in like comments on videos or things on Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever, um, that when I would post something, a lot of the times the things people would pick up on would be like features I took for granted, right? So it's like a CSS feature that's been there for 5 years now, has really good support, that people are like, oh, I never had heard about that. So the idea was to take lesser known but well supported features to help raise awareness about them. Uh, and I've already diverged a bit from them. There's some that are already progressive enhancements, and we're like 25 posts in there or something. But the other part of the problem is things got a little bit boring. Right? So when I first started it, when I had the idea for it, I'm like, I'm going to make 52 ideas. So that's a 1 year of posts planned out. Well, at least the titles, like the subject, not the titles, the subject for each one planned out. And I have that list in Notion. So I have 52 things planned out. Uh, the problem would be as I'd be going through them, it'd be like, okay, I'm doing my month of writing now. Like I have one day or one morning usually where I try and write as many of them as I could. And what was happening at the beginning, it was fine, but then the next time I'd come, I'd get into some, and I'm like, I don't feel like writing about that. I'm going to push that one further. I'm going to promote this. I've just been using this cool other feature. I'm going to write about that instead. And I was going off of my original plan. And I've done this with YouTube as well. So I should have learned this. This episode is all about just I should be learning from my mistakes, but I don't. Um, with YouTube, at one point, I was planning like quarters at a time, and then I'd get to the sixth video in there, and I was just like, no, that's so boring. I'm not going to record that. I'm going to do this other more fun thing instead. So for YouTube, I don't do full quarter planning anymore. I do at most a month. And when I do a month of planning, I tend to work on all 4 videos right away. And within the week, I try and make them. So I'm trying to like, right, like they're actively being worked on. It's not things I'm going to be working on in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Because planning those out, then my ideas shift. I don't feel like doing it anymore. The idea I had just it fizzles a little bit for me. So I move on. My way with the tip of the week also, though, because there's more to it, was not only is this going to be my tip of the week, but I'm also going to use these as a script for my shorts on YouTube. His shorts on YouTube, I enjoy doing them. I see there's value in having them. So I'm like, oh, I can kill 2 birds with one stone. I know there's a lot of people who don't like shorts, but they are probably some of those people who don't like shorts anyway will like little short form blog posts where they can get the tip without dealing with vertical video and all of that stuff that they don't like about short form content. So it's like 2 birds with one stone. It can sort of cover 2 audiences and all of that. And that was the idea. Every one of those was just going to be directly turned into a short. I wanted to offset them a little bit. So, like 3 weeks after the tip of the week, the short would be coming out. But I think out of I have about 25 to 30 tips right now. And out of all of those, I think I've made one or two shorts based on the tip of the week. And then actually, yeah. Anyway, maybe a bit more, but it's been very few. It was two or three, one or two that were intentional. And then I've made a few shorts not realizing I had a tip of the week on it. And I could have used that as my script, and I didn't. And so now, yeah, it's it's been a bit of a mess. But I think I might have thought about it backwards. And now, to try and revive the tip of the week, my idea is to do the inverse. I'm going to turn my shorts into written tips of the week. Because shorts, I don't always, but I tend to have a script for them. And even if I don't, I can get a transcript of it very easily and then rework that into something that would work as a written blog post a bit easier. And I always have demos for those, so the code is already written for them, so that helps, right? And so I think that's going to be the plan going forward, and then I'll see what happens. Where I'll take my shorts and yeah, we're going to work backwards from what my original plan was. Uh, I've also been thinking. I guess the other thing that I'm thinking about through all of this is, do I just scrap it, right? Like I've stopped for a little bit. I enjoyed working on it, but might scrap it. I don't know, because I'm also like, I was thinking of it. I'm like, why did I make this standalone site? This is completely unrelated to everything else I've been doing. So, do I, if I am going to revive it and I am going to base shorts on it, should it just be this thing that's floating off on its own, or should I wrap it into everything else I'm doing? Which is kind of hard because everything I do is on YouTube. We're going to tie it in with the shorts, maybe. That's the idea. But then I'm like, should I bring that into like my site, kevinpowell.co, which is like the needs a refresh and is dead, essentially, because I have articles there, but I haven't posted an article in forever. So I'm like, I've wanted to revive my long form articles there, but I know for me, writing takes a while outside of the really short form stuff. I'm doing something right now. I'm just like, oh man, I haven't written something like this in quite a while, and it's hard. Or it's not hard. I edit so much and moved. I don't know, it takes me so much longer to do a written article than it does to do a video. So anyway, like, do I bring the shorts form, the tips of the week, into my main site, a little bit like Piccalilli? So Andy Bell with Piccalilli has like the main articles, then there's links which aren't direct. Like, he'll like, if he comes across something cool, he'll have like a little comment about it. It's a bit like CSS Tricks too, right? They do similar things, at least they used to when Chris was there. I don't know if it's still a thing they do or not. I think so, though. I think Jeff brought it back. But, Chris would be like, oh, there's this cool thing, have a really short commentary and then link to it. And it's good in a couple of senses, because it can help that site out too, right? Because you're giving a little bit of validation from the SEO side of things, if SEO is still a thing, because apparently people don't click on Google search results anymore because AI answers their question. And anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But do I revive my site a little bit? I do want to rework it anyway. And do I wrap the tips of the week into there? And then, of course, the other thing is, maybe I don't do it as a tip of the week. I kill that side of things and just make it the HTML and CSS quick tips. And that's an option. But at the same time, I think if I do that, because it's already going to be kind of low on my priority list, then it will probably just die eventually. I don't know. I have a feeling it would get forgotten if I didn't say it's a weekly thing. That's a little bit. I'm surprised I still make YouTube videos, to be honest with you. This is what I do. I start things, I get excited about them, they're cool, and then I just never do them again. And the way I kept up with YouTube was to commit to making a weekly video. And I actually did it. It's the only thing in my life, I think. It will not the only thing. Obviously, I have a family I take care of and everything else. I think I'm pretty consistent with that. Um, but that was a weird way to say that. No, I take care of my family. I don't know. I guess I, I don't know. It feels like that's me. Like, it's a community affair. That's the wrong way to say it too. But anyway, you know what I mean. I'm not like this overlord or something. I don't know. That's how it felt like I said it. I don't know if that's how it came across, but it doesn't matter at all. the but yeah, I guess in terms of like personal projects and hobbies, it's one of the only things I've been consistent with forever, and now it's become a job, so I have to be consistent with it. But even before that, like for 5+ years, it was something I managed to do, and I was like, I committed to it weekly. That worked. So I think if I do that with these other things, that could work. And obviously it didn't, because I'm struggling with that. But again, I'm struggling with it on two fronts, because it's low priority, and then I'm like, am I just trying to revive it because it's this idea I like, or is it something that I think could be useful and valuable? But that's the other part of it, is I think it can be valuable to people. So I also don't want to let it die, because I see value in it and that people could get stuff out of it. So that's the part that's a little bit hard there, I guess. Um, yeah, I'm sort of rambling a bit now. And another thing I wanted to talk about, and speaking of priorities and projects and new things and starting new things, uh, something I started and finished is I teamed up with Amit Sheen. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast yet or not. It's possible. I'm very bad at remembering what I've talked about on here in previous episodes. So I might have mentioned this before, but we teamed up to create a free 5-part Dev Tools for Beginners course. And the easiest way to find it would just be to find the link in the description. But I'm curious if it shows up in Google or not. I haven't looked. But it's devtoolsforbeginners.kevinpowell.co. I think it's on my courses page. I'm going to look after I post this and see if I added it to my courses page. And if not, I'm going to add it there. But it's really for beginners you don't have to be a beginner developer, but it's for people who haven't been using the CSS dev tools at all, just to make you aware of the different features that are there that can really help out. If you've been using your dev tools a lot, it might be a little bit too basic for you, but definitely if you're interested in learning a little bit more about those, you can. And speaking of working with Amit, it's a good thing to stay motivated is when you have a partner on something. So we are working on another small course as well, diving into all the new math stuff in CSS and the old stuff too. We're not only looking at the new things, but we do suddenly have trig in CSS. And as someone who doesn't know anything about this, it scares me anytime I see it. And Amit is somebody who does crazy math stuff all the time. And so I'm having Amit help me understand it all, from how it works to the purpose of it and why we might want it in CSS. And we're recording him teaching it to me. And turning all of that into a small course that I'll keep you posted on anyway. We're in somewhat early days of that, but it's coming along pretty well. And so, yeah, as that makes more progress, I'll let you know about it if you're interested in it, because there's some cool stuff that you can do now. And some of it, I'm still not 100% sure if I would use it regularly, but there's definitely a few of the new things I'm like, oh, I get it now. But yeah, it's intimidating having some of the math stuff if you didn't learn that or use it regularly. It can seem really strange, but there's definitely actual use cases for a lot of it, which is kind of cool, I guess, once you know about them. And I guess since I'm talking about courses, I wasn't planning on talking about it, but the big one right now, and again, I think I've mentioned this in the podcast already, but I am reworking CSS Demystified. And speaking of priorities, that's like top of the priority list right now. I have talked about it. I don't know how much I've talked about it, so I won't go in too deep into it. But just in case, we're doing a general update on my priorities and everything I'm up to this week. So I've actually finished module 1, and I'm getting close to finishing module 2. And there's going to be 3 modules with an asterisk. I'm not going to talk about that now, but I do need to record all the videos and other stuff. But the hard part of writing the lessons has been done. Speaking of writing, there's a lot of written content in the course as well, but which is slowing things down. I've been doing lots of reshuffling, but I had my original plan that has been like blowing up. And the original plan was based on the original CSS Demystified, because I really think that still the one that is existing now is very good. But I think with CSS coming along so much since I made that one, it did need a big refresh. And then in doing that, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to change a lot of how I'm doing this. It's one of those things where it's a different approach than I've sort of taken to teaching CSS. It's a lot of the things that I already talk about, but I don't know, I'm just sort of reshaping it a little bit in terms of the progress going through. with the real purpose of it. And obviously, when you're done, I want people to be like, yes, not only can I do all these things, but really like the main purpose of this one when people are done is like, yeah, we're going to learn some cool stuff. There's features and everything else. You get better at knowing the different things you have. But the goal of the course is I get CSS now. And I think the approach I'm taking to it is going to work for that. But anyway, that's enough like self promotion of my own things. I hate talking about things like this. I don't know why. I'm very uncomfortable saying like, oh, I have a course that you should go buy. And even now I'm mentioning two courses you can't even purchase. Well, CSS Demystified, the original, you can. But yeah, it's weird in that sense. And actually, I talked to Sarah Suedane, which she's going to be a guest on here soon. I interviewed her. I just have to edit that. And I know she was highly recommended by lots of people over the last while. So I'm very glad. And I've been planning this with her for quite a while. So I was really happy to get that together. And at one point during our conversation, I asked something, and her answer was like the best thing you can do with accessibility once if you're getting to the point where you're sort of like you're past the very basics, but it's like you can't figure it out, is like find a structured course. And there's lots of good courses out there. And at that point in the talk, we hadn't mentioned that she had a course yet. And I was just like, Sarah, you're allowed to mention you have one. and it's a good one and people should get it. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. That's just like, like she's like, I'm like, oh, at least mention like I have one, but there are others out there. But she didn't even want to do that. And I was like, on one end, I thought it was very endearing, but I also complete like 100% relatable, right? Where it's like, yeah, I, I feel weird marketing, even if it's my own thing that I think is really, really good. But I will say her accessibility course, Practical Accessibility, is very, very good. So if you are looking for one, you can go check that out. But we'll be talking more about just, it's like a super long conversation we had together. And I'm going to be keeping almost the entirety of it together for my longest ever podcast episode, probably in a week or two, depending on when the edit is finished for that one. So something to look forward to there. And while you're waiting for that, I'm assuming you like podcasts, or at least listening to me talk, since you got to this far into this one, which has just been a ramble of me talking about things I'm up to, which I don't know how interesting that is. We're not, anyway, we're here. And if you're still here, you probably don't mind listening to me at the very least. And so you might be interested to know, if you haven't already listened to it, I was on the Shop Talk show with Dave and Chris this week. And for me, that was a really big moment. I started listening to the Shop Talk show when I was still a teacher and before I started making YouTube videos. So probably like 10 years ago, which I don't know how long they've been doing it. It felt like when I started listening, they'd already been doing it for a while. But when you jump into a podcast, they just already have their flow. I don't know. I should look at when I started listening to it and see if I can find roughly when it was. But maybe I'd started the channel. I don't think I had, though. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's been at least 8 years, probably longer, that I've been listening to it. And so it was pretty cool to be a guest on there. Like a really, for me, like a big moment, even though whatever. I mean, it's like, oh, I was a guest on a podcast, but like it was such an influential podcast for me for a really long time. And I'm still a listener of it. So it's always cool for that. And I will say that I haven't laughed that hard in a really long time. It was really, really fun. I mean, they're already fun guys, but we it was a fun one. So yeah, if you're looking for something to fill up some time after you're done listening to this, I would encourage you to go and check that one out. And with that, I'm going to leave you there to go and check that out. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome. And I just realized I thought my white balance was fixed, and it's apparently not fixed. If you're watching the video version of this, I am very red and I'm going crazy. I can fix the white balance on my camera, but I have to do that every time I turn it on. And it never used to do this. It used to work properly. So I need to figure something out. Anyway, thank you so much again. Until next time. Bye.